Hi everyone, this is Seema Mehta from The Confident Communicator along with my fabulous partner Deepma Jadeja. We are having a rocking new year 2021 with such an amazing
2022.
2022. Sorry. See, I can't get rid of it. I'm still holding on to 21. But yeah, to new beginnings, 2022, where we've had such amazing guests who have come to our show, and we're excited to share what they have to say. And one of the most interesting guests today we have is Mr. Santhosh S. Santhosh S is the founder of a very interesting company called Bambram, which is in Tamil means the spinning toy.
Yeah, it's a spinning toy.
It's a game design studio. One of the reasons why we wanted to connect with Santhosh is that some of the products that he and his company have created out of a lot of passion fits into a lot of gaps that our education system seems to be having. And we want to get into that conversation soon. So welcome, Santhosh, to our conversation at Imperfect Parenting. We are so excited to have you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Seema. Thank you so much, Seema.
So Santhosh,
good to meet you here.
Yes, Santhosh, you mentioned that you are based out of Chennai, and you found that there were some gaps in our education system which you wanted to fill. But give us a bit of a background about your company and who you are and where you're from, and how did you enter into this gaming design studio?
Sure. So I'll skip the pre-MBA part. So post-MBA is where I'll probably start with.
He's being a little modest. He's from IIT Kharagpur. He has done his master's there, but he doesn't want to talk about it. That's fine. We'll move on.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So post-MBA is where my real fun journey started. So I started volunteering for one of the NGO called Vidyaramam. So I traveled extensively across Tamil Nadu. And one of the beautiful things which Vidyaramam does is they have a toy van which goes to different government schools. And they give the toys and games for kids to play. So I spent time with the kids, and even one of the most reserved kid was able to open up once they immediately start playing. So that's when actually I truly found the power of the play as such in the toys and games in particular. So when I came back and I spoke with my partner, and then we started a library for toys, which is an online toys and games library, which is based on multiple intelligences theory. I'll not get into the boring theory part, which is simply put, every kid is unique, and every kid have their own interest, and every kid have their own ways of learning things. So sometimes a kid can learn by reading. Some kids love math, some kids love drawing, some kids do activities. So you have toys and games for every different
and that's exactly why we love talking to somebody like you, Santhosh, because there is such a beautiful synergy here. We at the Confident Communicator have this philosophy where we always like to put the children right in the middle, and whatever we do is around them. And we also feel that the only way a child will learn is if they are enjoying what they are doing. They must have fun. Making them do meaningless things doesn't give them the proper education that we want for our children. They might learn to memorize a lot of things and maybe strategize and write great exams, but they're not going to be great innovators or creators or designers. And I think that's where you are sort of plugging that gap that we seem to be seeing in our education system, and we like that synergy. So
I love that you call yourself a playpreneur. I'm looking at your LinkedIn profile.
It is fantastic.
So amazing. And you talked about the multiple intelligences theory, which is basically if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, like they say, he's going to live his whole life thinking he's stupid. Right?
Yes. Yeah.
And you have to you were talking a lot about, in our previous conversation about environment and the impact that it has. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So I found environment plays an amazing role right from where you're studying, where in fact I studied in IIT Kharagpur. In fact, the things which I learned, the important things which I would probably want to call it, which I learned in the college was not from the classroom at all. So it was mostly outside the classroom. And that's probably is still helping me lead my life in a meaningful way and with a sense of purpose. So,
but you also mentioned that you left Chennai, after like literally you grew up in Chennai, you studied in Chennai, and then you went to IIT Kharagpur, where it was a completely different culture. You were talking about that earlier. Just briefly about that, how changing your environment and going into a completely new environment makes you understand other people and make connections better when you step out of your comfort zone. Yeah.
So one is, you read about quite a lot of other cultures. The other one is going there and immersing yourself there and understanding it. So it took some time for me to digest and come to terms with, okay, I'm living in a completely different environment and where things are slightly different, and there are people who are different compared to me. It's not necessary. So it creates a sense of empathy. You start understanding other people's point of view, and it helps you keep you grounded, and the other one, it also helps you understand their point of view. And then it actually, as a designer, it's one of the core skills, I would say. Empathy is probably one of the core skills, so because when you don't understand about what others feel and what others think, then you would never be able to design for them.
Correct. Absolutely.
So, fortunately or unfortunately, my whole life is actually about designing, be it product or be it services. And right from designing toys library, and then I went on to designing my own games. So that level of empathetic learning is actually helping me a lot even till date.
Yeah, and I think that's a classic mistake a lot of companies make when they're creating products, is that they are really not understanding what the customer wants, and they end up designing things that they really don't need. For example, you were talking earlier about how you were playing an American game, and there was a word in the taboo game where the child didn't know what Halloween was, and I thought that was a very interesting story, because we don't realize that there's a different culture here in India, and a lot of children have not had that exposure, and they probably have not heard of this holiday. But at the same time, that's where, as an entrepreneur or how do you say that? Playpreneur, which I love, is to really understand what is it that the market in India wants. So go ahead, tell us a little bit more about the environment and the market and all that.
Right. So once after completing my toy library, it was going fine. So we took games with so much of passion. We went to different schools, gave the toys to games to played with them. So everyone enjoyed it. So one of the kid actually walked up to me and at the end of the play session, and then said, "Anna, I really loved what you did, but it's just that I think I don't understand that word Halloween." Then it struck me. Okay, so again, the empathy is what was missing when I actually played with them. And then I realized, okay, it's probably, there are not many companies in India who are actually designing games for Indian children and Indian context. So we went back, tweaked some of the games which we already know, and then came and again played with them. They enjoyed a lot. And then we realized that we are probably onto something. So we could probably do something in this field. And I spoke to a couple of my friends from Harvard, who also studied with me in IIT. So they were on their vacation. And then we started this foundation called Gale Planet Foundation. And we designed games which is based on inclusivity, gender sensitivity, simple games. And in fact, one of the games we started with was King Skin. It had a nice child-friendly theme to it, but the underlying theme in which it is built is your disability or your gender should not decide what you want to do. So if I say that it's a driver, the first thing which comes to anyone, even the adult's mind, is immediately they think about a male figure. But it's not the case, right? It could be any gender, and it could be anyone. But that's what we have been conditioned to, because that's what we see as well. So, but this is even more evident when it comes to kids. So they come to a conclusion that these jobs can only be done by male. These jobs can only be done by female. So I should not even aspire to it.
Absolutely.
So which is a very, very sad thing. And this can easily and beautifully be broken with, these stereotypes can be broken with games.
I remember we played a game in one of our classes where we asked a question to our students, and this was the question, that there was a man and his son sitting in an aeroplane, and I think something to that effect, where he says that, the pilot allowed me to sit in his next to, what was that game? Something to that effect, right?
I went and met the pilot and then said that's.
And the pilot said, "That's my son."
That's my son.
And people were like, well, maybe the father was the pilot.
Does he have two fathers?
No, maybe there's two fathers. Yeah, maybe two fathers, but not one child was able to say, maybe the pilot was a female and his mother was the pilot. So that thing that you were talking about, gender conditioning, is so true. And this is a question we asked probably 14 plus year-old kids, and they still could not figure it out.
Yeah.
That the
pilot, about kids, even adults that have the same conditioning.
It's terrible, yeah.
There's quite a lot of, so it's, it was quite helpful for me to understand that you can actually make games which is purposeful, which is meaningful, and you can still reach out to the people and you can make them play. Yes. And that's where the journey of creating games happen.
So I want to interrupt you one more time here. And the reason for that is because we have a lot of parents listening to this this episode, most likely. And, we had one previous guest who actually made a very, very interesting point. She said that we have a country full of engineers, but we don't have innovators and creators and designers. Would you agree with that statement, number one? And number two, if you think that is true, why do you think that is true? And why is it important to have innovators, creators, and designers in this in our education system? And that's what we need to churn out rather than just a long list of engineers.
Right. So I partly agree with it, but the problem, I wouldn't say there are not enough innovators here. There are quite a lot of innovators who are here, but they are playing a safe game right now. So most of the innovators, because the infrastructure is expensive for creating products. If I have to create a Apple iPhone, I need to have every ecosystem in place. Like the whole ecosystem, if it's going to be there in place, then it's far more easy. So I just need to plug and play and then tweak and do it. Absolutely. But imagine if nothing is going to be there, if I'm going to be sitting in one village or if it's in a remote place, and there is no access to it, then I need to figure out so many things apart from figuring out my own product. So that's the state we are in. Because I can easily point out. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, is that the reason then that we are still playing games from abroad? We are playing Taboo. We are playing Balderdash, we are playing Apples to Apples.
Dictionary, those kind of things.
No. Is it because we don't have the alternative over here? I mean, Bhamram and your Kingskin sounds really amazing. The game sounds really amazing. So, tell us a little.
Sure. So it's a slightly different problem there when it comes to games because the market needs to exist for it. So that's the market demand for games is still much less, right? So if I'm going to be a parent, if my kid is going to be approaching toward 9th grade, then my typical thought is, okay, I need to plan her or his career. So I'll start looking at which classes can I put her into.
Yes.
Which so I need to have a robotics class because the robotics is the hot field here. But the actual funnily, in fact, most of these skills might be completely irrelevant probably 10 or 15 years down the line.
Right.
But
like
what are the core skills? Right, coding.
Yeah.
So, but if you actually look at the skills which are evergreen, they are not the fancy skills which is needed, which no one talks about.
Yeah.
Incidentally, most of the games actually address these skills. So you talk about problem solving, you talk about decision making, you talk about interpersonal communication, creative thinking, then gender sensitivity, empathy. All these are essential skills for you to shine in a world. Yep. These are things which cannot be taught in school.
Yeah, 21st skills. Yeah.
Right. So, but these skills are not taught in schools. These skills cannot be taught in even by your elder because they are busy with their own. I'm not blaming anyone here in the system.
Correct.
But these are something which only specific tools can teach you about, or real life experience.
Right.
For the lack of it, I think the games are amazing tool for which you have fun and you're still learning.
Correct.
But a lot of people actually undermine the value of the game and end up chasing skills which I do not know whether I would say it's the biggest risk they are taking, chasing those games, because it might be irrelevant and you probably have to update yourself with new skills.
Absolutely.
15 years down the line.
Are your games mostly digital, or are they actually physical board games?
I have done games in complete different spectrum. So yeah, I have created card games, board games, digital games. I've created games for corporates where I teach, where they learn about, like ICICI Bank. I've designed a game where they can learn about cash profitability through a board game. And so right now, I've designed a game for a recruiting agency where if they want to assess their behavioral skills, they can play this game with them. And based on how they play, they can actually take cues from it, and then they can assess whether the person, because most of to be honest, if you go to an interview, you know what kind of questions would be asked, and you know what kind of answers I need to give to get through the game, get through the job. But if with the game, you cannot cheat. You obviously need to put your skill set and then play the game. And then the recruiter can probably ask questions on why you took this decision or why you have not taken this decision. So there is a game for almost every occasion is what I would say.
Every occasion and would you say every age also, or is it limited?
Every age. Every age. Very true. Very true.
So are you concerned about then the fact that a lot of, with the whole, of course, pandemic, everybody has gone online, and there's a lot of conversation in the last year or so about how much our children are spending time on screens. There's a lot of time being spent on the screens, which is leading to a lot of issues, which include lack of focus, anxiety, stress. And of course, so that's one part of it. And of course, there's another part of it where the education system is not having the essentials, like you said, empathy, sensitivity towards others, communication skills, decision-making, all of these things, and critical thinking, problem solving. A lot of these things are not being really taught in the practical real life way. So for example, if you're playing a game like a Monopoly game is a very interesting game where all of these skill sets are addressed, right?
Yeah.
So how do we bridge this gap where there's an excessive amount of digital exposure to our children, where which is leading to lack of focus, stress, anxiety, depression, all of those things. At the same time, they're missing out on all these relevant skill sets, because I know that Deepma and I mean, we are much older, so we grew up in an environment. We played a lot of board games. We were out there. We were playing outside. We were cycling, climbing trees, doing all kinds of physical activity. And that the trend is now changing towards everything digital. So what's your view about that?
Sure. In fact, I would again want to stress back on the word environment here. Yes. So you grew up in an environment where the street play is okay, and it's okay to go out and play. There's no hygiene concern. If you're going to break your bones, it's okay to break your bones. You can fix it. There's a doctor over there.
Things have changed.
But it's not the case right now.
Not anymore.
So the parents are overcautious about, I'm not blaming them here. I'm not judging them here.
No, it's the environment. That's how it is.
The environment is changing.
We used to walk to school. Now people prefer to drop their children to school because it's not safe to walk on the road. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But even within the house, which is under their control, you have other preferences, other priorities as a parent, and you're not willing to spend that time with your child, and for whatever the valid reasons. So I wouldn't entirely, So I wouldn't want to blame anyone here, but it's just that we need to look at what are the options, right? So it's basically a beautiful decision-making problem here, where I have umpteen number of digital devices here to engage my child, and there is me who I have X number of times, X number of hours to play or spend time with it. So how do I want to spend, and how do I want to allocate my time between my child and my work and my own hobbies and other stuff, right? So you probably want to spend, I mean, if you are not a board gamer, which means that you're trying to outsource that your work to a digital device and then connecting them there. Yes. But if you are willing to spend time with them and make that as a habit and make that environment conducive for a non-digital play, then I think that's where the habit formation also happens. I've seen many of my friends do that. They don't watch TV because they don't want their kids to watch TV. And they don't want them to spend time on mobile. There is a simple no mobile rule for this many hours.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
No, so and that's something we also, we want to very emphatically say to the parents is that you have to, there's no blame game here. That's the environment. We cannot, our children are growing up in a different world. We grew up in a different world. I agree with that. However, as parents, it is our responsibility then to chalk out that time to include some of these kind of activities so that our children are not constantly looking at the digital space, and that there is time for the family to come together, bond together, solve problems together, think together critically, learn about some different things, learn about the environment and the world around us. And for that, we have to set the time to do these kind of activities. And it's fantastic that somebody like you is bringing them this opportunity, like we have through our products also. We have our conversation cards, which many of our students and their families use, where we have a set of 100 cards with interesting questions, and we just sit together and we, families sit together, friends sit together, and they ask each other questions, and everybody gives their viewpoint and conversation ensues. So this is something that even we are very passionate about, and we feel that that's something parents must find the time, because this environment has changed. Agreed. But this part doesn't need to change. We can still do it.
That's true.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think that's an interesting question. Now, how do you suggest parents try to bring that idea of innovation, creativity, and design in children? Like, what else can they do? What can parents do to encourage what you're trying to push and promote here?
Okay, I would. So I have done quite a lot of workshops with children. Especially, we do an intense 2 or 3 day workshop in creating board games, their first board game. So they end up creating their own board game. We tell them the whole process about how to go about it, pick your theme, what is the conflict which you want to bring into the game. They completely understand. But if you actually talk to a parent and then say that, okay, your kid actually can make a board game, no one will believe it unless they see that in hand, that they can actually create something. No one will believe it. And in fact, the schools were not willing to believe it. So we had to do a couple of sessions and then show, okay, this is a great game.
Before,
they have not. So I think we need to give the benefit of doubt to them. And then let them try and experiment and come up with something which is interesting. I mean, what's the worst which is going to happen?
Yes.
They might be making another snakes and ladder, which is fine. They made it. So you are anyway putting them into craft classes and do all that stuff, right? So that's an ideal design. If you actually look into it, all your design workshop and design skills would be integrated into it if you actually end up designing one board game. Not just one board game, even if you're going to end up publishing your own book or publishing your own comic. So every game, every kid would definitely have their own story. It could be in the form of a book, it could be in the form of a game, it could be in the form of a card game, anything. Or it could be a video.
What I love hearing what you're saying is that I was reading this book and I forget the name, but one of the things that the author said was the neurons that fire together, wire together. Right? And that's exactly what you're saying, is in being so much in the digital world, being 24/7 now with schools, with the pandemic, even the school is online, classes are online, your playtime is online, your game time is online. If everything is online, then there are certain neurons that are not getting used, and as they're not firing, because they're not getting used, they're not firing, obviously those connections are not being made, and those connections are in fact being lost. And I love the fact that you're saying take a step back. Instead of sending the child to the AI class and to the app building class and even the making the game digitally class, which seems to be one of the top things right now, the top
it's like the FOMO, right? The FOMO effect, the fear of missing out. If I don't put my child in this class, then
nothing is going to happen.
And you think that in having them build a digital game or a computer app or a phone app, mobile app, versus this board game, building a board game, what is it going to teach them? How is it going to teach them? But a word of caution here is that that Steve Jobs, who created the iPhone and the iPad, never let his children play on it. Mark Zuckerberg never allows his children to play. Bill Gates had very clear timings of how long his kids could be online. And if all of these people, they knew something. They knew the addictive nature, and they knew of the products they themselves had built, right? So they didn't give it to their children. So I love the fact that you're saying, hey, go back to the board games, design it, do the problem solving skills, do all of that with your hands and with your brains, and design it that way with trial and error. I love that. Where can we find your great games, Santhosh?
So right now, both the games are listed in Amazon, Belly Battle and Big Bull Junior. And the other workshops, I do it on and off in different schools. I go to different schools and then do that there. It's an intense process, and we tie up with different publishers and then try to publish the games as well for them. So you don't really require me or anyone for that matter. You can, as a parent, you can just go sit with them. You take any game, for example, if there is Hangman, or if there is categories or Scrabble. So you just use the components and then ask the kid to come up with their own version of a game. Which is just take the rule book and throw it away and just give the game's components alone to them, and then ask them to make a game. I'm pretty sure that it'll not be the same game which you actually end up playing.
Santhosh, I think we will certainly invite you to one of our, we have a class called Leadership Communication, which is a program for kids, which is basically for kids between the ages of 10 to 15, where I think a session by you would be an amazing addition to our program too. So we'll talk about that offline. But, this has been such a great conversation, especially where we are trying to encourage children to be more innovative. We are trying to encourage children to go away from the digital space a little bit and have some time for free play. I think free play is a concept that we are slowly forgetting. Especially we are seeing that in older kids quite a bit, where as teens, where once they hit the teens, they are so much into their cell phones and their laptops that they don't even have time to go down to play for 15 minutes. And that, I think, should not happen. And we need to, encourage our children to do more of these kind of free plays. And I like this unstructured approach where there are no rules. Go ahead and make your board game the way you want. It's your game. Make it the way you want. And I think that kind of freedom allows room for innovation and allows room for creative thinking and problem solving and everything that you mentioned earlier, which is so important for the 21st century. So, really thank you so much, Santhosh, for being part of our program. And I'm sure we're going to have a conversation again because looks like there's a lot of synergy here. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Deepma.
We will link your games and your classes. If parents want to contact you, we will link them in our description box, and they can contact you.
Sure. Thank you so much, Deepma. It was a pleasure meeting you both. Amazing work you guys are doing. I would love to see more and more talks and shows happening here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Santhosh. And we'll see you guys again in the following week, next Wednesday at 5 o'clock. Keep tuning in. Thank you, Santhosh.
Thank you.
Yeah.